Hi, I'm making this video as a brief lecture to talk about the topic of diversity and how important it is in today's and in the future management, which obviously can affect a lot of you. So, diversity is basically thinking about the differences among people due to age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background, education, experience, physical appearance, capabilities, disabilities, and any other characteristic used to distinguish people. Now, some people see diversity as being a negative thing, and it really is not. It really should be considered a positive thing. We'll talk about that more when we talk about how groups interact. But for now, just know that it's a very important part of every organization today. So, I'm going to talk about some of the aspects of diversity that matter. So, all these different sources of diversity create a really complex environment in most organizations that covers a lot of different people, and there are certain legal aspects on how we interact with certain people of certain classes in terms of how we hire, promote, fire people, all key management functions, and we have to keep those things in consideration, not just from the legal standpoint, just because it's the right thing to do. But some of the changes that are happening is our workforce is getting older, and the median age today is 37.8, and by 2030, 20% of the population will be over 65 years old. I mean, that's a trend that's been going on for a while, and it will continue. That's certainly going to affect the workforce. There are laws that govern how age cannot be used under for purposes of hiring, firing, and promoting people in an organization. In 1964, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act was passed, and that covered all the major classes, including race and some other things. But I'm bringing that up now because it's also included in age. And then it was specifically added to by the Age Discrimination in Employment Act in 1967. So when we think about age, and we think about ageism is the word that's used when we talk about discriminating against age, it's very illegal and fairly illogical as well, because older people typically have more experience that could be beneficial to the company as well. But just know that it's there, and it's something you have to consider. Gender is also a growing consideration here. The U.S. workforce is now 44.3% female. But women earn less than men for similar jobs. There's lots of evidence of that, even though we have legal protections that presumably keep that from happening. But if you look at the overall statistics, you know that while we've made progress, we're not where that is meant to be. Women hold only 14.6% of executive officer positions in the 500 largest U.S. companies. And a very interesting woman by the name of Ursula Burns was the CEO of Xerox, a massive Fortune 500 company. And I put some interesting things about her out there in terms of being the first minority female CEO of a major corporation, and some of the challenges that she had. Very interesting thing to listen to her in terms of what it's meant. And I fully encourage you to look at those. They're embedded in the module. And as we can see, there are earnings gaps that vary tremendously based on the type of jobs, and this gives you a rough idea of what some of those things are, but those gaps are definitely there. Now, race and ethnicity are certainly coming into play as well. So the current demographics in the United States were 72.4% of the population is white by the year, and I think it's 2040, early 2040s, that will no longer be the case. The whites will no longer be a majority of in terms of race in the United States. Other groups will have grown so much that that's causing that to happen. So things are changing. things are changing dramatically and changing rapidly, and it shows in our in how we're going about selling products. When you watch advertising on TV, and it goes as far as our politics. You can see how it affects that. So that's a major consideration of what's happening in the U.S. today. And so with that changing face, it creates challenges that we need to rise up to and embrace. These are positive things, not negative things, and they're changes that are actually going to make us better. So just know that, and know that it's part of what we need to consider when we in management, and how we're going to have to be sensitive to a lot of different things going forward. So, but please review those things. Ursula Burns is a very, very influential, but also intelligent and well thought out points of view on what it's like to be a female and a minority female in a leadership position in a major U.S. corporation. And that concludes this lecture.